Hi film fans, my name's Sam and welcome to It's Only a Film. Today I'm going to talk about 5 strange movie coincidences. But before we begin, don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you get the latest up-to-date content as soon as it's uploaded. Movies are strange, but life can be even stranger. As human beings, we tend to look for patterns and connections in things when there really isn't anything deeper to find. Sometimes coincidences are just that, nothing more. However, that doesn't mean they're any less interesting. So, with that being said, here are 5 strange movie coincidences. The film Contagion came out in 2011 and it had an all-star cast with the likes of Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow, Matt Damon and Kate Winslet. I can remember back in 2011 when this film first came out, there was a big deal being made about Gwyneth Paltrow's character being killed off quite horribly and early into the film, which shocked a lot of people. But apart from that, the movie came and went and nothing really else stood out about it. And over the coming years, it was largely forgotten about. That was until 2019 came around and the spread of COVID-19, which became the global-wide pandemic which is still affecting us today. Watching this film today is a lot more uncomfortable as it mirrors a lot of stuff that actually happened during the pandemic. Listen to the movie's plot. A deadly virus originates from a bat in China and spreads out quickly across the globe as everyone scrambles to try and find a cure. Mass panic starts to engulf the public as anxiety spreads rampant. Conspiracy theories start to flood the internet, spreading fear and misinformation. Now, does that sound a little too eerily familiar with stuff that happened throughout 2020 and 2021? Thankfully though, like in the movie, we too also found a vaccine, so hopefully we can put days like this behind us and move forward. "1978 saw the release of Superman the movie, a type of film that had never been seen before on the big screen, starring a relatively unknown actor, Christopher Reeve, as the titular superhero. Gene Hackman, a well-known Hollywood actor, was cast as Superman's arch-rival Lex Luthor. The film was a massive hit and set the bar for superhero films to follow. And then came the sequels. Superman 2 was an excellent, if ever so slightly not as good follow-up to its predecessor, but then after that, the quality started to dip significantly. Superman 3 was lighter in tone and a lot more comical. It was an okay film and it certainly has its fans, but it was a very noticeable downgrade from the previous two. Even the movie's villain, Ross Webster, was a knockoff of Lex Luthor. Then came Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Sorry. This film is awful. It's awful. I really don't know what else to say about this film. It's terrible. It's so bad. It had a stripped back budget, a terrible script, and that doesn't even begin to address the issues that this film had. Mark Pillow's Nuclear Man has the voice of Lex Luthor for some reason, and they have the stupidest conversation about it.
You have my voice. No, you have my voice.
With the release of Superman 4, fans and critics hated it, and for the time being, the Man of Steel's movie franchise was officially dead. From 1978 to 1987, we had 4 movies over 9 years, and Superman himself wouldn't reappear on the big screen until 2006's Superman Returns. In 1989, history started to repeat itself. Just when you thought Warner Bros. And DC could have learned from their mistakes of Superman, they then released Batman. Again, a type of film that had never been seen before on the big screen. Starring a relatively unknown Michael Keaton as the movie's superhero Batman, and casting Jack Nicholson, a really well-known major Hollywood star, as Batman's arch rival, the Joker. The film again was a massive success, and it redefined what it meant to be a superhero movie. And then came the sequels. Batman Returns was an excellent, if ever so slightly not as good, follow-up to its predecessor. But then the quality started to dip significantly. Batman Forever was lighter in tone and a lot more comical. Again, it was an okay film and certainly has its fans, but it was a noticeable downgrade from the previous two. Even its villain, Two-Face, was like a knockoff version of Jack Nicholson's Joker. Then came Batman and Robin. They wear ice skates, there's a bat credit card, there's nipples. Like Superman 4, this film is awful. It's such a far cry from what the original movie was when it came out that I can't even believe it's supposed to be a direct sequel. This film is a pun-filled neon nightmare which completely destroyed the Batman franchise dead. This time around, the series ran from 1989 to 1997. We had 4 movies over 8 years, and Batman wouldn't reappear on the big screen until 2005's Batman Begins. So, to recap, that's 2 DC superhero movie franchise spanning 4 movies each. Their debut films were both well received critically, financially, with major fan support. Both had an excellent sequel and then another that started to dip slightly in quality and was a lot more comical in tone. Finally came the 4th disastrous movie in these franchises, which neither of them could recover from. As I said in the introduction, if the filmmakers had learned from the mistakes they made with Superman, then maybe Batman could have avoided the same fate. But that wasn't meant to be, and the 2 franchises were doomed to mirror each other. A few months ago, I started making YouTube shorts about highest grossing movies of certain decades, and while I was collecting my information, I noticed a few strange coincidences. Coincidences that are minor, but strange nonetheless, so that's why I'm putting them in this video. First up is quite a minor one. The highest grossing film of the 90s was the film Titanic, and the highest grossing film of the 2000s was the movie Avatar. Both these movies were made by film director James Cameron. Alright, okay, so that's not a major coincidence, it is quite minor. The guy's a really good director, he's made some of the best films ever, and in the 90s and the 2000s, 2 of his films were the highest grossing films of those decades. So I've got another few coincidences. What about this one? The second highest grossing film of the 90s was Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace. This was the first entry of a new trilogy of Star Wars movies. This in itself isn't that strange until you look at the 2010s and you see that the highest grossing film of that decade was Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens, which itself was the first entry in a new Star Wars trilogy. But what's that, I hear you say? That's still not too strange of a coincidence, as it is Star Wars and it's a huge franchise. Well, listen to this. Back in the 90s, The Lion King was released, and it was a hugely successful movie for Disney. That film was the 5th highest grossing movie of that decade. Flash forward until the 2010s, the remake of The Lion King is released. Guess where this remake finished at the box office for that decade? That's right, 5th highest grossing movie of that decade also. How about this one? Also in the 2010s, the Fast and Furious 7, Furious 7, Fast 7, whatever you want to call it, number 7 in that franchise, was the 7th highest grossing movie of that decade too. Okay, one last coincidence I've noticed about box office results. In the top 10 highest grossing movies of the 2010s, all 10 are either a sequel, a remake, or part of a franchise, and 8 of them are owned by Disney. These coincidences aren't earth-shattering, they're not part of a wider conspiracy, I just thought they were worth mentioning in this video. A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, The Return of the Jedi. These 3 movies, created by George Lucas, are widely considered to be one of the best trilogies ever made. When it was announced George Lucas was going to make a prequel trilogy, anticipation went through the roof. But the 3 films that came were underwhelming. Gone were the real locations and whimsical storytelling, and in its place was CGI sets and politics. This prequel trilogy was not well received. Although it does have its fans, myself included, it just never matched the quality of the originals. The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, The Return of the King. These 3 movies, created by Peter Jackson, are widely considered to be one of the best trilogies ever made. After successfully adapting J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, it was announced that Jackson would be adapting The Hobbit as a prequel trilogy. Fans eagerly waited in anticipation to see what Jackson could do. However, like Star Wars, the 3 movies that came were an underwhelming CGI mess. Although special effects had advanced significantly since the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, the prequel trilogy somehow just looked worse. The source material was stretched so thin to try and cover 3 movies, to the extent that loads of filler had to be added to try and pad out the runtime. Just like George Lucas before him, Peter Jackson's prequel trilogy pales in comparison to his original. I'm sure the Hobbit trilogy has its fans, but unfortunately, I'm not one of them. As much as I love Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit trilogy just isn't for me. Before I begin with this one, this involves a real life tragedy, so I'm going to try and be as respectful as I possibly can. If you have ever seen the movie The Omen, you'll understand why this coincidence is so unnerving. In the 1976 film The Omen, there is a special effects stunt where someone is decapitated. The special effects supervisor, John Richardson, who designed the scene, was travelling in his car through the Netherlands with his girlfriend Liz Moore. The car crashed and sadly Liz died. Now how Liz died was that she was decapitated due to the crash. However, John had survived the accident and later discovered that the car had actually crashed outside the Dutch town of Omen. And even more unnerving, the car had crashed beside a kilometre marker that read 66.6 kilometres. Now, I'm not going to start talking about vengeful spirits or demons, as I don't think that's respectful to anyone involved, as this just is a horrific coincidence and there's nothing deeper to look into. It was a horrific accident that involved 2 people that worked on a film. But even though I understand that, this coincidence still gives me the chills. And the making of The Omen on set was known as a very cursed production. But again, I'm not going to speculate on anything. It's just a horrible coincidence, and that's all I'm going to say on that matter. Well, film fans, thanks for watching my video on 5 strange movie coincidences. Let me know in the comments if you know of any other strange movie coincidences. And don't forget, if you like this video and you want to see more, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.